Hi and welcome to my channel. My name is Favor, and in today's tutorial we're going to be learning how to make this fishnet shrug. Okay, so let's get right into it. The materials we'll be needing for this include a pair of scissors, measuring tape, a yarn needle, and also some stitch markers. We'll be using a size 4mm hook. You can use any hook size of your choice. Okay, this is the yarn I'm going to be using for this tutorial. It's a fingering lightweight yarn. The measurement we'll be needing for this is your bust measurement. So my bust measurement is 34, okay, and I'm going to divide that 34 by 2 to get the half measurement. So 34 divided by 2 is 17 inches. So you can just fold your tape, okay, like so, and you can see half of 34 is 17 inches, which is going to be the length of my starting chain. Okay, to get started, you want to make a slip knot. Okay, I'm using 2 strands of the fingering lightweight yarn. You can use any yarn of your choice. So you want to put your yarn around your hook, twist it like so, and then you want to hold that and yarn over and pull through the loop on your hook. So that is your slip knot. So you now yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through. So we are now making our chains. Okay, so you just keep yarning over, pulling through until your chain is long enough to stretch up to the half measurement of your bust, and for me that is 17 inches. So at this point I have my chain enough to stretch up to the length I want. Okay, so you can see when I measure it without stretching, it is around 13 inches, but when you stretch out the chain it reaches 17 inches. Okay, so we are working with the stretch measurement of the chain. Okay, once you have your chain to the length that you need, you want to chain an extra one, and then you want into that second chain from your hook, we are going to place a single crochet stitch like so. So into the next chain you insert your hook, yarn over, pull through, and pull through all loops on your hook. Okay, so you just keep making single crochets like so on top of each of the chain stitches all the way around until you get towards the end of that row, and I will meet you there. At this point I'm towards the end of the row, and I'm just placing my remaining last single crochet stitch. So this is what our first row looks like. Okay, so now to get started on row 2, you want to chain 4 and then turn your work. So this chain 4 is going to count as our first treble stitch. So to make the second one, yarn over twice into the second stitch there, insert your hook, pull through, yarn over, pull through the first 2, pull through the second 2, and then pull through the last 2. So that is our treble crochet stitch. So now you want to chain 3, okay, yarn over twice, and then we are going to skip 3 stitches. So you skip 3 stitches, and into the 4th stitch, that is where you're going to place your next treble crochet stitch like so. So we do that again. Yeah, chain 3, yarn over twice, skip 3 stitches, and into the 4th stitch you place your treble crochet stitch. Okay, so that is just the pattern we'll be needing for this tutorial. So I'm just going to keep repeating that all the way around until I have a few stitches left towards the end. So I'll meet you towards the end. So at this point I have just a few stitches left towards the end. Okay, so let me show you how to finish that off. So when you make your last chain 3 and then skip 3 stitches and place your treble crochet into the next stitch, you have maybe about 2, 3, or just 1 stitch left. Okay, so me, I have 2 there, so I'm just going to skip 1 and place into the last, okay, without a chain in between like in the beginning, like so. See, we have 2 treble crochets that are together, so you just place your last treble crochet into the very last stitch there without placing the chain stitch in between. Okay, so your 2 treble crochets stay together like so. So it will look like the same thing that we have at the beginning of our stitch there. Okay, so now to do the next row, you want to chain 4. After you chain 4, you want to turn your work. The chain 4 is going to be your first treble crochet stitch, so our next stitch is going to be into that chain space there. Okay, so you want to place a stitch marker on that 4th chain, and then you make your normal chain 3 that is always in between each treble crochet, yarn over twice, and then into that chain space there, that is where you place your second treble crochet for this row. Okay, so you can see how your first stitch and the chain 3 space is looking like. So now we'll just continue, chain 3, yarn over twice into the chain space, you make your treble crochet stitch there. Okay, so you chain 3 into the next chain space there, your treble crochet stitch there. So that is just the pattern we are going to keep repeating all the way around until we get towards that last chain space there. So now at this point I've worked the second row and I'm towards that last chain space. So you chain 3, place a treble crochet into that last chain space. Okay, and then we will now have our 2 treble crochet that are together. So you want to chain 3 and place your last treble crochet on the very last stitch there, which is the chain 4 from the previous row. Okay, So you place your last treble crochet, and that completes this row. So for the next row now, we are going to chain 4 as usual, which is going to count as our first treble crochet. Okay, so when you chain 4, you turn your work, and we are going to repeat what we did, okay, for the row before, where we had 2 treble crochet together, because we have a chain 3 space there. So you just place a treble crochet there. Okay, so you can see this is 2 treble crochet together now. So chain 3 into the next chain space, you place a treble crochet there. Okay, chain 3 into the next chain space, you place a treble crochet there. So this is just the pattern we'll be repeating until we get towards the end, and we'll repeat the same thing we did for the beginning towards that last chain space there. Alright, so now I'm towards the end of this row as well, so I'm just doing my last couple of stitches. So chain 3 into the chain space, make a treble crochet stitch. Okay, so now this is my last chain 3 space. Okay, so you chain 3 into the chain 3 space, you make your treble crochet, and you remember that place where we placed the stitch marker, we are going to take up the stitch marker and place a treble crochet right into that chain space where our stitch marker was previously. Okay, so make sure you're putting it into the right place and make your last treble crochet for this row. So you can see for this row we have 2 treble crochet stitches at the beginning without chain space, and another 2 treble crochet stitches towards the end. So now for the next row, we are going to chain 4. Okay, after you chain 4, you want to place a stitch marker on that chain 4 space there. Now you want to turn your work, and then you chain 3. After you chain 3, yarn over twice, and into the chain space that you can see, okay, you place a treble crochet stitch there. Okay, so this is just what we did on one of the row before the previous row that we just did. So you can see, chain 3 into the next chain space, you make your treble crochet stitch. Chain 3 into the next chain 3 space, you make a treble crochet, and keep repeating this all the way around until you get towards the end of the row. So if you notice, we have 2 different rows for repetition. So on this row, we have 1 treble crochet on both the beginning and towards the end of the row. And when you count it, for me, I have 14. Yours might be different. Okay, I have 14 chain space. So for this row, we have 2 treble crochets at the beginning and at the end as well. And when you count it for this one, you're going to have 13. Yours will be different as well. So the difference between the 2 rows is just 1 inch space. Okay, so those are the 2 rows we are going to be repeating row after row. Okay, until we are going to have the length that we'll be needing for this mesh top. Okay, so you can see it's almost 3 inches, and we want to keep making row after row. Remember, we have 2 different kind of rows, so you keep repeating those 2 different rows row after row until we have about 8 inches. Okay, so when you place your work and measure like so, you should have about 8 inches, and I'll meet you there. All right, so at this point now, I have my work, the length I want it, which is about 8 inches. You can make yours longer or shorter depending on what you prefer. So for the next row now, mine stopped at the 2 treble crochet together. Yours can be on the 1 treble crochet at the end. That's not a problem. You just chain 1. Okay, so you chain 1, turn your work, and in this row we are going to be placing single crochets on each stitch. So on that very first treble crochet there, you place a single crochet. On the second stitch there, you place another single crochet. When you get to where you have your chain 3 space, you want to make a single crochet on each of the chain spaces. Okay, so 1 single crochet on the last chain space there, and then on the part where you have your treble crochet, you place 1 single crochet on that treble crochet stitch. On the part where you have your chain 3 space, you make 3 single crochets. So 1 into the next chain space, 2, then into the last chain space, 3, and then on your treble crochet you place a single crochet. So this is just the pattern you want to keep repeating all the way around until you get towards the end of that row. So at this point, I've done my single crochet all the way towards the end, so I'm just doing my remaining last couple of single crochet stitches that's remaining. So after your last single crochet stitch there, you chain 1, pull up a loop and cut in between. Okay, so just a quick measurement. Okay, this is what our work looks like, and when you measure it, you can see it's still that 8 inches for me. Yours might be a little bit bigger. That's totally fine. So after you have your work like so, you want to go ahead and make a second pair, exactly the same thing we did for the first one. That's the same thing you're going to do. So after you make your second panel, you want to arrange your work, okay, so that we can start sewing for the shoulders and the neck hole. So you want to make sure that your stitches are facing the same direction. So you can see mine, that's the bottom part, and this part is the top part. So I'm flipping it so that the top is to the top and the bottom to the bottom. So now we are going to work on this. So at this point, as you can see, I am arranging my work as it should be. Okay, so you want to just take your time and arrange those parts and make sure that you have the same sides. Okay, like these 2 treble crochet together Okay, that is the part that I have on the top part of my stitches. So once you've arranged it like so, we want to mark out the shoulder, and to do that you take your tape and you want to mark out 3 inches, okay, from that side towards the inside of your work. So you just want to place a stitch marker on that 3-inch mark. Okay, so that's where my 3-inch is. So place your stitch marker and then you want to count the number of stitches you have. Okay, and then you count the same number of stitches on the other side and mark. So I'm just going to do mine real quick. So once you've counted the stitches to be the same, you want to take your stitch marker and mark on that same exact number of stitch. Okay, so that is the part for this shoulder. Okay, so we are going to move on to the other side. Arrange them together, place your measuring tape and mark out 3 inches as well. Okay, so you mark where you have your 3-inch space, they count the number of stitches, count it on that other side and mark it on the same exact number of stitches, just like we did for the other side. So this is going to be the shoulder parts where we will join together, and then this part is going to be our neck hole. So let's start joining. So now we are going to be joining these two sides with single crochet stitches. So insert your hook into that, and since I still have my yarn connected, I'll just pass it through and chain one to lock that two together. So you can just attach a yarn there if you don't have any yarn to work with. So now into that very first stitch there, you insert your hook, and into the very first stitch from the other side, you insert your hook too. You now make a single crochet stitch there, as you can see. Okay, so into the next stitch you put your hook through, into the other stitch on the other side put your hook through, and then make a single crochet, repeating the same thing again. So making single crochet on both stitch together to join, and we'll keep repeating that until we get to where we have our stitch marker. Now I'm towards to the part where I have my stitch marker, so I'm just doing my last couple of stitches remaining. So joining this part together, and when you get to where your stitch marker is, you take it off and join that last remaining 2 stitches together. Okay, so once you have joined, you chain one, pull up a loop, and then cut off the excess yarn. Okay, so this is what our joining is going to look like. So now we're going to repeat the same thing we did on that side on this other side of our work as well. So at this point I have joined that part together, so you can see the two shoulder parts are now joined, and this is what the neck hole is going to look like. So I'm just going to measure that real quick to show you how long mine is. So mine is about 8 inches. Yours might be bigger or smaller, so feel free to adjust it to how you want. Okay, so now the next thing is to mark out the armhole so that we can start making our sleeves. All right, so to mark out our armhole, remember that the length we have was about 8 inches. Okay, and I'm going to be taking out just 1 inch for the armhole, giving us 7 inches. All right, so I am using 7 inches for the armhole because I'm a size medium. So depending on what size you are, just go ahead and adjust accordingly. So when you mark out the armhole, you just go ahead and sew any other remaining parts together. So you want to arrange your work like so. Make sure that it is on the wrong side of your work, and then that is going to be the inside part of your work. So now you want to place your measuring tape from that bottom edge and get your 1 inch mark. So I'm just going to take out that full part as my 1 inch. It's a little bit more, but that's totally fine. Okay, so you mark that other side as well. So you mark those 2 parts of your work. So we are going to be joining those 2 together, and this part will be our armhole. So now you repeat the same thing on the other side. Take a stitch marker, and then those section, that bottom section, so you can just mark out 1 inch, 1.5 inch, depending on how tight or loose you want the armhole to be, and then you mark out that part as well. So now the next thing is to start joining. So you take your yarn, and then we are going to attach it right that place where we have our stitch marker. So make sure you're picking both sides, and then you want to attach your yarn like so. Chain one to secure. Okay, and then we are now going to make a single crochet into that very same place where we attached. So make sure you're picking both sides, and then make your single crochet stitch to join. Okay, and then on this part where we have our treble, we'll be making 3 single crochet stitches. So picking the first one, make sure you pick on both sides. Okay, make your single crochet, that's the first one, and again you're making the second one on that bar stitch. Okay, which is making it 3 single crochets in total. So making another single crochet on that bar stitch. This is the 4th single crochet, and then on that single crochet row there, we are going to place 1 single crochet stitch there to join. Okay, after that you chain one, pull up a loop, and then cut off the excess yarn. So this is what it's going to look like. So remember, this is the wrong side and this is the right side of your work, and then this is what our armhole is going to look like. So you turn your work around and repeat the same thing on that other side as well. Now I'm done joining the two sides, as you can see. Okay, remember this inside part is going to be the right side and this outer part is going to be the wrong side of your work. Okay, and then the next thing to do now is start working on the sleeves. And to do that, we are going to attach a yarn right onto that center part where we joined. Okay, so you're going to insert your hook through that single crochet stitch that we used to join, and then you want to attach your yarn right there. So attach your yarn. Once you have your yarn attached nice and secure, we are going to make our first treble crochet stitch. Okay, so chain 4. The chain 4 is our first treble crochet stitch, and we are going to put the next treble crochet stitch into that space there on that treble crochets that we have. So now you want to attach a stitch marker right into that 4th chain, remember. Okay, so that is your first treble crochet stitch. You chain 3, yarn over twice into that space there. You're going to make a treble crochet there, chain 3, just the pattern we did when we were working on the body, and then into that space there you make a treble crochet. So you're just going to keep repeating that all the way until we get towards that shoulder part, and I will show you what to do. Now when you get towards that shoulder part where we joined, okay, after you make your treble crochet into the last space there, you chain 3 and then place a treble crochet into that very stitch there where we started our shoulder join. Okay, you chain 3 into the next stitch there, that is a space, and we'll just keep repeating the pattern like before all the way around until we get towards that end there. At this point I'm towards the end of this row. Okay, so into that last space there you make your last treble crochet, and then you want to chain 3. Okay, and we are going to connect this round. So chain 3 and then slip stitch to join into that top place where we have our stitch marker, which is the chain 4. So you slip stitch to join that round, and then you want to chain 4. The chain 4 counts as your first treble crochet. Turn your work around and into that chain space there, and yarn over twice and place a treble crochet there. So you can see that there is no chain 3 in between the treble crochet. So chain 3 and then into the chain space you make your next treble crochet, chain 3 into the next chain space, you make your next treble crochet. So this is just the pattern we repeat all the way until we get to the last chain space. So when you get to that last chain space there, you want to chain 3 and place your last treble crochet into the chain space, and then we are going to slip stitch to join to the top of that chain stitch there, which was our first treble crochet. Okay, as you can see here now we have 3 treble crochets together. So once you slip stitch, you chain 4 as usual, turn your work, and this chain 4 is going to count as your first treble crochet stitch. So you want to place a stitch marker on that one, just like we did for the first row. You chain 3 and then into the space there you want to place your treble crochet stitch there. Into the next space you chain 3 and place another treble crochet stitch there, and that is just the pattern you want to repeat all the way around until you get to the end. So towards the end of this row 3, we're just going to chain 3, yarn over twice and place our last treble crochet into that chain space. Okay, after that you want to chain 3 and then place your slip stitch on the top of that chain 4. Okay, and then join that round. So you want to chain 4. So for row 4 we are going to be repeating what we did for row 2. All right, so turn your work around. After your chain 4, into the next chain space right there you want to place a treble crochet stitch. You now want to chain 3 and into the next chain space you place a treble crochet stitch, chain 3 into the next space you place a treble crochet stitch, and you just repeat this pattern all the way around until you get to the end of the row. So we are repeating row 1 and row 2 all the way around until we get the length that we want for our sleeve. Okay, so I'm going to be making mine long to be enough to my wrist length. All right, so I'm just going to show you the length of the sleeve right now. It's about 3 inches in length, and I want to keep making that until I have about 22 inches. Okay, which is my wrist length. So at this point I'm towards the end of this roll. Okay, I've made the sleeve long enough to reach my wrist length. Okay, so I'm just making the last chain 3 there, and I'll slip stitch to join on the 4th chain for this round. So let me show you what the length is real quick. Okay, So taking my tape measure, I'm going to measure starting from the end there towards to where we started. You can see it's about 22 inches. So you can make yours shorter or longer depending on how you want it. So this is the length I want for this tutorial, which is about my wrist length, and you can see that the work stretches as well. Okay, so it can stretch a bit more than the length that it is right now. So the next thing we want to do now is to make single crochets all the way around to seal off that end. Okay, so we already chained one at that end there, so I'm just going to place a single crochet right onto the base of that chain stitch there. Okay, so we're just going to make a single crochet which is going to be on top of that first treble there, and then into the next chain stitch you make one single crochet, into the other chain stitch you make another single crochet, and into the next chain stitch you make another single crochet. So into the 3 chains you're placing one single crochet each, and then on top of that treble there you make another one single crochet. Now for the chain stitches you place one single crochet on top of each of the chains. So 1, the next one now 2, and then the other one, which is the 3rd chain there. So on the treble you place one single crochet. So you just keep repeating this pattern all the way around until you get to the end. Alright, so at this point I'm towards the end of that row, so I'm just making my last few remaining single crochet stitches. So once you place your last single crochet stitch on the last chain there, you want to slip stitch to join to the top of the first single crochet that we have there. So you just slip stitch and join, chain 1, pull up a loop, and then cut off the excess yarn. So that completes it for the sleeve. Okay, so this is what your sleeve should look like at the edge. Okay, so after you're done now, we are going to repeat the same thing that we did on this part of our sleeve, the same exact thing on the other side of our work as well. I already did that off camera, so this is just me showing you the work. And then yeah, this is the other side of the sleeve as well, so go ahead and do that and I'll show you what to do next. So at this point the next thing to do now is to weave in all these ends that we have. Okay, all these we are going to hide them. So remember, this is the wrong side of our work, okay, and this other inside is the right side of our work, so we are going to be weaving in on the wrong side of our work. So you want to take your yarn needle, and then the place where you want to weave into, you want to pick stitches in between the stitches closest to that yarn there that you want to weave in. So after that you feed your yarn through your needle, pull up the needle, arrange it, and then cut off the excess yarn. Okay, so you repeat the same thing on these other sides as well. So you take your yarn needle, put it through the stitches closest to where you want to hide. Okay, and then feed your yarn through the needle like so. After you feed your yarn through the needle, pull up the needle, arrange it, and cut off the excess yarn. So you're going to repeat the same process on all the other pieces where you have yarns hanging out, and that will be all. And this is what our shrug looks like, and that will be all for this tutorial. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to this channel, and leave a comment down below. You can also check out my other videos. Thank you for watching, and see you in my next tutorial. Bye.